Welcome back to another episode of That's Business. Today, I'm joined by professionals Melisa and Ber-Henda. And today, we will be talking on the deeper themes of feminine leadership, truth-telling, and cultural transformation, as well as some of the upcoming Detroit events we have going on. Ber-Henda and Melisa, thank you so much for joining the podcast today. But before we dive into everything, I have to know, how did both of you meet and get into the work that you did today? So whoever wants to start, tell me about this beautiful partnership.
This is amazing. So this is how I met Melisa, and this is a nod to a recent TikTok that Angela did about women being mean to other women, like for no reason. Like, it's hard to fathom that women would be mean to each other, because Angela and I both come from spaces where we support one another. So I just want to name that in Detroit, I would not have a business. I would not be where I am if I didn't have the support of literally of other women. And this is how Melisa and I came to be, was really through another woman. So we have a mutual friend, Jessica Hadari, who does amazing work out of California, former modern dancer, and like all things like mystical, woman, feminine. Like if there was a picture of Tinkerbell incarnate, this would be. Honest to goodness, I promise you. I don't mean this like seriously. This would be Jessica Hadari. Like, I think she just floats. I think birds like wake her in the morning and pull her covers back.
Yes, like a Cinderella. Yes.
Yes, and she puts pixie dust in her coffee, and literally there's like a chorus of animals that sing at her behest. But so I reached out to her saying I needed some support on like two endeavors, and one was producing a podcast for girls through the She Project. And then for my own project, the Ber-Henda Williams Show and the Soul of a Leader podcast. So she says to me, oh, I think I have the perfect person for you. She's intentionally been really wanting to do some more work, more inclusive work, working with BIPOC women and BIPOC communities. And like, she really wants to use not just her money, I mean, that helps, but like platform, and like really wants to amplify the very thing that you're sharing with me. I think the two of you should connect. And it's one of those things. This is literally the story of my life. I could write a love letter about every time someone does an interaction like this, where it's like, okay, and you start talking, and the more you talk, you start to see that there's just so much alignment. There's so much passion. You're like, okay, so why haven't we met sooner? Okay, but that's fine, because everything in divine right order. And that's literally how Melisa and I met, was through this chance connection. Well, not chance, intentional connection through Jessica Hadari. So shout out to Opulent Priestess. Yes. So shout out to Jessica Hadari and the work that she does, because literally, Angela, I'm not even kidding you. This woman has, I think, the largest networking platform I've ever seen. She does this Feminine Frequency Festival every year, where literally she just summons women to come into her community and pitch about their business, share their offer, no charge. It's completely free. She has these virtual teas, and women literally come in from all over the world. She does this once a year, which I think is brilliant. I don't know how she does it, because to me, it feels like such a big lift, but she does it. And I believe that she does it because she cares. She cares deeply. She cares about women and their businesses. And we know that all the statistics show that when women are successful in their business, they are the number one philanthropists. They give. They take care of their communities. They take care of not just their households, but projects that they definitely believe in. We understand the world that we're currently living in and existing in, with multiple genocides all over the planet, with educational systems that are absolutely deplorable. Still in America, there are places where running water is still at a premium or doesn't exist. There isn't infrastructure for that. We have seniors who are living on their own. We have an epidemic of loneliness. So for this woman to say, okay, I'm going to, for free, summon as many powerful, light-leading, light-working women as I possibly can to come into a space under a common vision of just love and support. I mean, we all need to take a moment and say, how do I become part of this? How do I support? So that's how Melisa and I have come into being. And she can share more about then the more Modern Day High Priestess, because I guess that's like the second leg of our love story, was how the Modern Day High Priestess came to be. But like I said, I would not be here. She and I would not be connected if this was not for this amazing soul, Jessica Hadari. I'll send you all the information on her so you can put it in your show notes, because I feel like if it wasn't for her, not only would the She podcast not be in existence, because we lobbied for that, but also my talk show and my podcast. It's all possible because of women-owned businesses. Every single sponsor that I have is a woman-owned business.
Oh, incredible. Now, first of all, mic dropped on that, Ber-Henda, because you are the ultimate hype woman and so blessed to have you in my life as well and can speak to that. So, Melisa, how did you get into this work and talk about this feminine frequency? Because I think a lot of people don't really understand what this means when they're not in this circle. So give us a little background on, have you always been this person, or how the heck did you get into this work?
Yeah, so I came into publishing really, I think, kind of stumbling. I was really looking first for how to get published myself. I really wanted to write, and I found the red tape across publishing to be really confusing and overwhelming. And at one point, I got really discouraged, like, maybe I can't do this, because people were still presenting to me the kind of old-fashioned model of publishing. Like, you have to pitch to these people. And if you don't already have a huge following and things, like, you're not going to get published if they don't really love what you have to say, or if what you have to say is not original enough. And I was just all in my head about it. And then I found multi-author books, and I was like, you're telling me for a small fee, I can write my chapter and someone's going to do this whole thing for me. And so I think it was around my fifth participation in a multi-author book, and after having hit bestseller multiple times and including USA Today bestseller and stuff, that I was like, I really love this. And the communities that I had built around the books, it was like, every multi-author book you come into, there's like a heart and a pulse to the intention of the book itself. And so you're united over a single purpose, which allows like deeper connections and things. And so I had formed so many amazing referral partnerships and collaborative partnerships, and also dear friends through all the multi-author books that I have been a part of. I started to become involved in one of the publishing companies that I was working for. And so I learned a ton about publishing. And then it was beginning of 2024 that I founded the Heart Open Publishing Enterprise myself, because even in the midst of all of it, I still saw kind of a lot of smoke and mirrors and some of the nonsense that we see in the online business space in terms of, people charging too much, people kind of pulling the wool over your eyes about what actually is happening behind the scenes, how many books are actually being sold, and, some of those things. And I was like, this is incredible. And I'm so proud of the works I've done. I could run a company and I could run it with more integrity. And on top of that, like, I started to recognize that publishing has been a space for the good old boys to decide who gets to share what and things. And like, even 30 years ago, how many BIPOC voices were being featured? How many voices from minorities or LGBTQIA plus were being published? And now we have an opportunity because of the internet, and honestly, Amazon as well. Like, love it or hate it, they have created this, incredible opportunity where you can have your voice heard all across the world, whether you're being self-published or you're going through a publisher. So my company is a hybrid publishing company, and authors do pay to participate in the writing, but what they're paying for is the whole team of support to help them write, to help with developmental editing, copy editing, all of that. And then I hold the communities in such a way where I'm now the one fostering the connection among the group and the referral partnerships, and helping these, people who have really intentional businesses where they're deeply in their service, deeply connected to their work, and maybe don't necessarily know how to get their work out into the world in a bigger way. So this is part of what attracted me to Ber-Henda, because Ber-Henda's network and community and the way that she runs her business was something I had never seen before. She's like, oh yeah, you come in with me, you pay this amount, and it's going to go to this and this and this, helping all these different women to be featured on her shows and to be featured on her podcast, and so that they can have flowers when they go on the show, and all of these things. I was like, yes, this is what I want. And I want to be connected in community with more BIPOC individuals. So we created a partial scholarship program middle of last year that specifically reserves spots in every multi-author book for individuals who come from historically marginalized backgrounds. And honestly, when I created it, I was kind of scared, because I was like, I don't know if I know people who are going to be excited to take advantage of this opportunity and stuff. And I mean, it was like 6 weeks or so of talking about it. And suddenly all of the spots were filled in all of our multi-author books because people were looking for these opportunities and capacity to share their story. I just feel like, so we primarily focus on transformational nonfiction, which means you have a story from your life and it's powerful. And I even believe those stories contain healing codes when we actually do the work to own and claim our story. And those stories matter and they provide healing for the planet. And this is something that is ancient. Like, we used to really value storytelling. We used to spend time in communities to sit around and share our stories and share our wisdom. And that is how wisdom was passed down from generation to generation. And it's something that we've lost, but that's now reviving through these multi-author books. And so Ber-Henda and I, it was like, oh my goodness, we could do a lot together. This is amazing. And Ber-Henda ended up bringing in several women into the Modern Day High Priestess volume, which published in February, and then also came in and wrote as well. And now Ber-Henda is an international best-selling author in addition to all the things she's doing.
Of course you are. Exactly. And this work you both do is so imperative. And we're talking around the themes of community because there's people from all walks of life. And whether you start a business, whether you leave a partnership or lose whatever happens, and it's like, well, where's my community or where are my people? Or when you grow, you kind of lose that portion. And the work both of you do is just so imperative for people today. So if someone's listening and they want to get involved in understanding what this whole modern priestess is, can you give us, Melisa, kind of a basic definition of what is this priestess? What is this whole feminine frequency? And on a baseline, what does that look like?
I love that question because it actually doesn't have a single definition. And when you read Modern Day High Priestess, you'll see that. It's amazing to me how women step into their core truth. They do the work to heal from, their traumas and things. It's not like we're ever fully arrived, but they do that work to come into sovereignty with themselves. And then they find their work. And I mean, there are so many varied ways that women are showing up, whether they're doing healing practices, whether they're running food banks. Ber-Henda's got this way that she's creating platforms and visibility. Like, the thing that I would say is that it's tangible and practical. And so it's this taking all the spiritual learnings, all of the things that you kind of wake up to in yourself. And then how are you actually going out and making that impact in the world? And I'd love to hear, Ber-Henda, what your take is on Modern Day High Priestess and what does that mean?
Yeah, I think that it's the place and community that I believe that women have always held. When I look at my own community, coming from the Black community, we had godmothers and big mamas who were proxy women for mother or maternal figures. And they always figured it out. I don't know how they figured it out, but they always figured out life. And I think it was an episode that I was on here with Angela where I talked about my grandmother, and I talked about this ecosystem of women who were literally creating underground railroads, if you will, for domestic abuse. So they were using my grandmother's friend's convalescent home. My grandmother was a registered nurse. All I know is her name is Big Mama. I don't know what her actual name is, but she was figuring out in the 1940s and 50s how to acquire property as a Black woman, which is almost unheard of.
Crazy.
Right. It's insane that we'd even have to be there. But as a woman, we couldn't own property without our father's permission or a man's permission. But then to figure out a way to acquire property as a Black woman, all the way to what is now modern day Huntington Woods, beyond me. So to me, she is a high priestess because she understands how to move heaven and earth. She is literally in communion with heaven and earth. And again, throughout traditions in ancient, of course, Mesopotamia, we can see the modern day, we can see the priestess through Greece. We can see them in Africa. We see them all over the world, but they might have different names. So in my community, Big Mama, your godmother, your mother, your aunt, your grandmother, these women who are looking at systemic injustices and in the face of them, creating miracles. And it's just Tuesday. And I'm in awe of how these women are literally challenging systems and feeding their families and showing up as mothers and wives and caretakers and block club presidents, like some of the women in the anthology from Detroit. I look at Karina Jackson, who's over at Mariners Inn, helping specifically men in recovery. Janine Spencer, who's got a clothing closet and urban garden and is a community advocate and worker and hairstylist. So it's like and. So like the perpetual multi-hyphenate, to Tierra Boyd, who is an esthetician and brand strategist and. So to me, the high priestess is our modern incarnation of an alchemist. She does it all, or in some spiritual traditions, a Proverbs 31 type of woman. But wherever, you call her or see her, I think you can recognize just the sheer magnitude and power that women have that is often not credited or celebrated. But I think, again, in this space, we are celebrating the woman that has gone through her own dark night of the soul, if you will. She has gone through her own trial and tribulation. And as she's moved through that valley experience, she's sharing her story. And that in itself is healing when you can be witnessed and heard. And I think there's going to be something really powerful that activates in the room, is that you're going to hear your own story, just a different name, maybe a different time and a different space. But you're going to hear your own story back and you're going to marvel at what you have been able to overcome. But again, as women, we midwife each other. We literally birth each other. And the more and more, I thank you again, Angela, for this platform. I really hope that whoever's listening to this, you rush to your group chat and drop this episode inside the group chat, because I can guarantee that you have someone right now that is moving through a mother wound, who has maybe taken on more than they ought to, and it has resulted in hospitalization. Perhaps you were a mother before you even could form yourself and had to figure out on how to do it on your own, and all the other stories that show up in this amazing anthology. And of course, Melissa's story. We all have stories. We have incredible stories. So I hope that it inspires someone to, at no less, just take a moment and start penning your own story, no matter where it may land, and look at the wisdom and the power from your own ancestry, your own lived experience, because we all have women that we just stand back and like, damn girl, how'd you do that? We all have
so true.
Right? That we're in constant awe of. And I know that it looks miraculous, but I'm sure that there are many tears cried, many F-bombs dropped, many come to Jesus moments, a time or two or three or 10, where they are on the brink of maybe giving up or surrendering or saying, is it really worth it? And then there's this moment of divine providence that comes in, because running a business is no easy feat, or rising up the executive ladder, looking at that glass ceiling. I mean, we still know that women do not make what men are making. We know that that's even less so for women of color. And here we are in this, eye of a storm, where we're looking at the suppression of Epstein files. We just saw the horrific, realization from Dolores Huerta, brave soul, and 96-year-old said, but I'm not going to the grave with this. And how many other women can be liberated because she took a bold stand and said, not only is this not going to the grave with me, I'm going to disrupt generational patterns of abuse of power.
Now, that is a perfect segue to something I want to talk about next. Coming to and being this, for lack of a better term, just badass women. And I'm sure both of you, before we even recorded, and Melisa Ber-Henda has been hyping you up forever. And I've actually attended a few of your events now that I put the circles together. So you are incredible, and you truly do embody, both of you, what you practice, what you preach. Now, a moment of healing, or something that we've been talking about for women like yourselves who come to, who speak, who bring up other women on stage and place a seat at the table for them. What do you say to the people for what we were talking about as far as women that dislike other women or try to push down other women? What kind of keeps you going to bring up other women in those times you want to give up, or just like, I can't do this work anymore? So Melisa, let's start with you. How do you continue to wake up every day, do the work that you do, and what kind of lights the fuel under you to keep going?
I really lend that to the priestess awakenings that I've had. Like, when I see women doing that stuff, I don't see enemies. I see people hurting. I think that all of that stuff comes from its sister wounds, its mother wounds. I think because I did my own work to wake up and recognize all of the systemic nonsense that was making me behave in shitty ways.
Yes.
I was like, that little voice inside of us that's like, you're not enough, you can't do it. It's not ours, it's inherited. We are all like born into a world where we have to fight through that inherited misogyny. And so I hold that with a lot of sacredness, honestly, like, and it's just planting seeds. It's planting seeds. And so to me, that moment when a woman shifts her perspective, I live for those moments. I live for shifts to greater love for herself or others, greater grace, recognizing the capacity for greater ease, whether that's through collaborations with others or through just giving herself, more permission to choose into things that are nourishing for her soul. I think more women choosing into selfishness as a sacred practice, like I'm going to put my own heart and my own needs first. I really live for those moments. And it's amazing when I bring together an author group because I watch them go through several points of threshold on the writing journey. Like they're pouring through their own story and they're like, really confronted with a lot of these things, but they're anchored into this reality that my story is inspirational. I've now put my money, my time, my energy towards declaring my story contains power, contains healing codes. And so that drives them forward. It's just amazing to me. So it's worth it. It's always worth it.
Absolutely.
For sure. Just echoing what Melisa said about confronting the self. Because if you're hating other women, there's something within you that you deeply dislike about yourself. And if we're being honest on a daily basis, how many ads are we just saturated with about beauty, about an aesthetic, about the way to look? I think at one point, we were told to slim down and get skinny. Now we're in an era where we're getting fillers for our faces and, BBLs, breast implants or not breast implants. Be natural, don't be natural. Have hair pieces, don't have hair pieces. Oh, you need to be a what is it? Trad wife is like a thing now, right?
Yep.
Okay. Or no, don't, because it's an affront to feminism if you pander to a man, if you fix him a plate, if you do this, if you do that, if you get married, don't get married. So on a daily basis, how do you, when you're always really pitted against yourself, then how can you love someone else if you're still wrestling with your own identity? And so this is why I love women like Erykah Badu, who just is so freely and
Queen.
unapologetically herself and has always been that way. When the industry couldn't understand where to place her or box her, she was like, I don't need your box. I got my own box. I'm fine. And who said I want a box? I mean, for her, I think she's probably on a rocket ship. That's just what I see her doing on a daily, because she's just so celestial, to me. And so I think that it's important to look to, and not that we want to mimic or pattern ourselves after anyone else. We want to be fully ourselves, but look at the women who are audacious and brave. And what's the saying that well-behaved women really make history? My avatar, I will always say, Cher. I love Cher. Cher is also a Taurus.
Yep.
So anytime Cher is on TV, I always thought, because she's always going to be herself, unapologetically herself, unfiltered. Again, I love the colorful language that Cher uses. She doesn't care. And I think that when we can point to a version of an aspiration, and I think this is why what Melissa's doing, Angela, again, what you're doing, to have the audacity to have a podcast, and there's so many broadcasters out there, it's not even funny. It's like literally anyone can have a microphone, right? So there's like zero research done. And so our wounds get amplified, right? Because then we hear on the other side of it, we hear people's wounds, we hear people's trauma. I mean, the bros are just trauma bonding, if we're just being honest. But okay, you just need a hug. You need a hug and you need a big mama. And you would just be so much
Who hurt you? Yes.
Right. So I really just want to anchor into anyone who's, the mean girl, just stop it. Just like yourself. Find something about yourself to like. And I can guarantee you will find something to like in other people.
Also, listen to what others talk. What are your partners saying? What are your besties saying? What are complete strangers saying about you that love you? Listen to them. I mean, half the career coaching I do, I'm like, would you say that same negative self-talk to the closest woman you have in your life, whether that's your mother, partner, friend, family, it doesn't matter. It's like, no, of course not. I will hype them up till the end of time. If they tell me to go run in front of I-75 in the middle of traffic, I will, which is a very busy highway here in Michigan. But we're so hard on ourselves. And I love the point of bringing up beauty standards or everything that we're in the age of social media, which is a double-edged sword. I love it. I love the information. I hate that's what's constantly being thrown at me, or, hey, look, here's the super successful entrepreneur. Why aren't you like them? Or here's the super successful podcast. Why aren't you like them? And in that state, and I feel like women like both of you who know your place in the world, know your calling, know what you're doing, like you said, you did the work. You went through that shadow work. You did the work that I'm sure brought lots of tears and lots of wounds and lots of things to the surface. But that's what makes you incredible human beings, that you do the work. And I just can't say it enough of uplifting other women, because life is so freaking hard enough. So I totally agree. Now, what is the big focus for, and Melisa, I just can't get over what 8-time international bestseller I believe you had said, which is insane. And Ber-Henda, you becoming an international bestseller. Let's start with Melisa. What was that first feeling like? Because international bestseller, both of you, like, can you fathom it? Because I'm crazy. Like, what? When Ber-Henda told me about hers, but what does that mean to you, Melisa?
It's interesting, like, yeah, tapping back into that experience from where I sit now. So I'll share what it felt like at first and what it feels like now. What it felt like at first was absolutely unreal. And it opened me up to this. Like, I started having conversations in rooms with people who were like, I'd really like to get on the Oprah show. I'd really like, and I was like, what? Like TV shows? Like, I had never considered,
yeah.
Like, wait a minute. Like, yeah, like suddenly, like, my story matters and people want to hear it, and in a deeper way than I had ever experienced before. Now, from where I sit, it feels more like the one. Like, I live for these moments when people reach out and it's just one person who's like, I'm in tears. I needed to hear what you had to say. Like, thank you. That for me actually feels more amazing than the shiny lights and all of the shiny things. I've done some TV shows. I have not been on Oprah. I've done, probably over 100 podcast episodes, guesting on other people's podcasts and all of that stuff. But like, it's really more meaningful to me when I get to connect with somebody because they heard my story and it unlocked something for them. I think it brings meaning to like the things that we go through in a way that's where it's like, oh my gosh, it was worth it. Like, that suffering was worth it.
Ooh, that's incredible. And Ber-Henda, tell us about your journey into being an international bestseller queen.
Well, takes one to know one, but I will say the way it happened, it goes back to the foundation, I think, of your show, of this, especially this episode. Other women made this possible for us. We literally activated. Do you remember that scene in Practical Magic where they enlist like the calling tree?
Yes.
And I guess Nicole Kidman's character and Sandra Bullock, they're out of the closet now, like, oh, hey, we're witches. And so they're out, and so they activate the calling tree. Well, I feel like we activated the calling tree. So we texted and we emailed, and I think it's even deeper than sharing on social media. We shook out our own network, our own people who love us, to then share. Could you please share with other people we have this opportunity. We put our stories, here. And I remember the Saturday we wrote together in community. So if you can imagine like summoning 22 authors together to sit in a writing session in our pajamas and headscarves and bonnets and, whatever else you look like on Saturday, just kind of rolled over to, in many ways, revisit a wound. And then to see that from this beauty comes, or from these ashes comes all of this beauty, to say that you're a best-selling author. So I think the way that we did it, it wasn't necessarily like a payola, like, you're paying people to write these endorsements for you. And it's, no tea, no shade. That's the way you do things. That's fine. But there was something I think that was really organic and inherently feminine about the way that I can say I'm Ber-Henda Williams, international best-selling author in group anthology, Modern Day High Priestess. Even saying it, it's still kind of like a little bit of a tongue twister for me. It's like, okay, Ber-Henda Williams and best-selling author together. Let's discuss. But I think that what lands for me supremely in my body is the fact that this was done by women that I will never know or meet, that saw this fall into their inbox or their text messages and said, I have to share this. They felt compelled to share it. And this shows us, to me, the power of collective feminine energy. When we put our minds and hearts to doing something, we are literally unstoppable.
Amen to that. Now, as we wrap this up, Ber-Henda, what advice do you have for listeners?
Ooh. Don't talk yourself out of it. Like, no matter how audacious it sounds, because I think the first thing that we'll do is, I don't have the money. And that will be the hill that everything dies on. I don't have the money. And I don't have the network. I don't have the reach. This is my running joke. And I said this last week at Leadership Oakland's Grit and Grace Summit. And I said, if Jesus had 6 women, he would have got the job done with less headache. And it would have been more efficient.
That's a new one.
I'm so serious. Think about it. It's like you had 12 knucklehead sailors, potty mouth, sailors that are all up in their feelings about whatever, this or that. But if you had just had 6 women, I'm just telling you, just let Mary Magdalene, Melissa, you just let Mary Magdalene go get her besties and say, okay, we're going to have a meeting about this. And Jesus, this is how it's going to go.
Mary would have had that shit done and on lock. Amen. Oh my gosh. I gotta tell so many people this one. That's a good one.
So wherever it is that you are, just remember that 12 isn't a big number, but neither is 6. And if you particularly inhabit a feminine body, you're, and this is, across the feminine spectrum, or even, a non-binary person, wherever you fall in the gender spectrum, whoever you are listening to this, don't let the no's or the possibility of anything negative keep you from doing it. Because literally, I remember when I applied to South by Southwest and became a featured presenter at South by Southwest, no less. I had no website, no business cards, and everything in my head was telling me, you don't have this, you don't have that, because there's a place in the section in there where were like show videos of you speaking. And I would say like mine at the time weren't like super polished. They weren't the best. So literally I'm going like inoculating every negative thought to the point I literally out loud, and I startled people around me. I said, shut up, because the voice in my head just got so loud. And I just said, I can't let this beat me. I'll never get anywhere or do anything that I think that matters or that I want to do. Because if I want to be a presenter at South by Southwest, part of it is apply.
Just do the damn thing, right?
That's it.
It's so true. I had someone, what I do to get through to people, I'm like, okay, write down every negative self-talk you have, just like a tally, just a sticky note tally. I stole that from somewhere years ago, maybe a Facebook post or something, or maybe the therapist I was with at the time, or just mark it old school, pen on your hand, and you could stare at it all day. I had a client do that, and she's like, okay, point taken. I stopped after 20 by 10:30 in the morning. So I get what you're saying, Angela. I'm like, okay, just making sure. But it's so true. And we all have our days. We're not all perfect. And even some of the best, multi-million-dollar companies we're seeing are friends that seem to be just killing it in life. Everyone goes through it. So great points to bring up. And Melisa, what are your parting words of wisdom?
I've been thinking a lot about advice. What am I bringing? What am I showing up with? Especially because we've got this amazing event in Detroit coming up. And Ber-Henda asked me a few weeks ago on her podcast, like, what are you bringing to the women in Detroit? I've been thinking about this so much. Like, what can I bring? What do I have? And it's the permission to tell your story. There is so much value in sitting down and making peace with the parts of your story that feel gritty, the parts that you think, I hope nobody knows this about me, because if they did, I'm afraid nobody would love me. Like, we all carry those things, and it's actually where our power lies. And so I'm not coming with advice. I don't think that women in this day and age need a bunch more advice. They just need permission to really claim the core and truth of who they are. And once you tell your story, you find that you're actually not defined by it. You find that you are so much more powerful than you thought you were. And I love that quote, what's your rate of survival? It's 100%. If you're sitting here today, like,
true.
We all have a story, and people will often ask me, what's the difference between a good story and just a boring story, or a story that doesn't matter? It's like, it's the meaning you make out of it. I could tell a story. I mean, even the story in my book, I shared a story about losing a baby, really early term. And how many times do we feel like that's a story that shouldn't be told, or there's no space, nobody wants to hear it, nobody cares? Like, it actually changed my life. And I took the time to be with that story and share that story so that I could give other women permission to share their story. So that would be my invitation and that's actually not just an invitation to women. It's an invitation to all individuals. Like, when we take the time to really connect with those parts of us that we thought nobody wanted, and we really try to understand ourselves, that is where our power is.
It's so true. Ladies, you have been incredible, and I cannot say enough good words. And for those of you listening, if you want to see the events coming up, work with Ber-Henda or Melisa, head to the show notes and tune in again next week for another episode of That's Business.